So, we'd like to continue. This is actually the last day of the 7 days of being able to continue with the influence of Shavuot, the giving of the Torah, to don't say Tachanon, but the time of the Beit HaMikdash they could still bring the offerings which were to be brought to the temple. On Shavuot, if they weren't able to do it, they could still bring them for another 7 days. So I want to continue with this talk which was given some years ago by Wolbe on Shavuot in our yeshiva. We turn now to page Tov Chet, those who are following inside. We explained that the voice of Hashem, the mountain of Sinai, appeared with a different sound and message for each individual, because each person is given a particular portion. We also say in our tefillot, Shibanei Beit HaMikdash v'ten chelkeinu v'toratecha. Please Hashem, give us our portion in your Torah. Every person is given a different portion, just like every person is given a different character. So there are some traditions which are crystallized by the Gaon of Vilna that the human character has 70 aspects to it. And the concept of 70 is one of the harmony of disparate elements. The character of man is being defined by some modern men of literature. Human beings are a bundle of conflicting emotions and ideas. The purpose of the word of Hashem is to take all those conflicting powers within the mind of man, but also change from one month to the next, sometimes from one day to the next, and to harmonize them, each one in a different manner. That's the concept of 70. Harmonize them. So it says the word of Hashem is such that it can enter into the innermost part of the human being. So if those who want to follow the Hebrew, will continue on Daf Tov Chet to the new paragraph, the top of the page. It's Chashad v'Torah chodea kach toch toch shel Adam. When words of Torah enter deeply into the inner makeup of the human being, then man feels yichol dibur medaber gam yitzarav. Each word of Hashem speaks to him not only of more external and conscious aspects of his character, but even of the lowest materialistic desires and instincts, which he is not ready, feels very ashamed to speak about them to anybody else. But what does the word of Hashem do? Olem alehem, it hammers down into the most basic instincts of the human being, like a hammer. And the evening creation, it explodes. If it's like metal, it melts. If it's like stone, it explodes. This shows the human being the word of the Torah in a certain light that only he can see. Because the Yetzer Hara of one person is not the same as that of another person. This reflected in the saying in Pirkei Avot, Ezeu Gibor. Who is the greatest hero, the most mighty man? HaKovesh et Yitzro, who is able to have control and channel his inner, deeper instincts, his evil inclinations, to turn to evil and turn to the animal self instead of the divine self, instead of the divine image, Serem Elokim. There's also the lower instincts. And if you're able, through the power of Yetzer HaTov, which is identical with the divine image of the human being, you're able to allow the light of that Yetzer HaTov to remove the darkness of the inner evil within him, then it's transformed into a tool for virtue. And each one's got a different type of Yetzer. And we also don't all have the Yetzer is the same. It's mitchadesh. The sages say the Yetzer of a person renews itself in a different form day by day. It says here, פעולה זו של דבר תורה מלמדת גם את הפירוש שלו. הפירוש שלו אותו דיבור. When Hashem said at the Decalogue, it's introduced with the words Vaydaber Alehem. Hashem spoke to the 3 million people who were listening. But then it said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the singular. I am Hashem, your God. I am addressing you as an individual, different to everybody else. Like the sages 2,000 years ago already bring this example of described the Laughing Cavalier, the portrait of Rembrandt, famous in the Louvre. I also saw it when I did a brief visit to Paris in the early years, and people queue up to see it because the eyes of that cavalier, they look at you if you're standing in front of the portrait, or the extreme right, or the extreme left. He turns his eyes to you wherever you are. And that is given as the illustration by the sages for the Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am your particular God. I'm expressing the summons to not to suppress the inclination, but in order to channel it, to use it. As we say in the Shema, V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha B'chol levovacha, we say it daily, to love Hashem with your double heart, Yishanei Yitzarecha, with Yetzer HaTov and with Yetzer Hara. To allow the Yetzer HaTov to control and direct the Yetzer Hara, which is ultimately the source of the energy of life given to the human being. On the basis of using those energies for the good, the human being becomes greater than the angels. The angels already have Yetzer HaTov. The human being will be given the task through his own willpower to transform his Yetzer HaTov into the guide to the Yetzer Hara. We think this is out of date, on the contrary, the other way around, and that we can bring to this those who have some knowledge of psychology. It's well known. People used to speak about the two schools of Viennese psychology, Freudian school and the Adlerian school. Freud was a big expert on the power of tava, the libido, sexual desires. And he saw this was the major instinct of the human being, which creates complexes, many problems. It's the pleasure instinct. Adler says, no, the major instinct is not connected with the instinct for reproduction, because reproduction itself is an extension of the instinct for self-preservation. It's the ego that comes first. And it's the egocentric instinct that a person wants to have everything for himself, have power for himself, the power instinct. I need power, I need honor, I need to be the center of life for myself. It all goes back. Human beings, like look at animal instincts, like nearly all the animal world, some extent in the plant world, an instinct to preserve ourselves, an instinct to preserve our species. It means to reproduce, not only to produce. These are two basic instincts, really two aspects of one instinct. But in more recent times, we had a person who previously, before the Holocaust, was a disciple of Freud, psychoanalyst. Through the Holocaust, he recognized that there's something greater. And goes straight to his more recent step. He started with logotherapy, but then he went on to describe the unconscious God in the heart of man. That the ultimate search for true meaning and purpose is the unconscious God. And here it's really reflecting Jewish tradition and became much more traditional in his later years. And Viktor Frankl, in some email that I had with him years ago, when he came up with this book, The Unconscious God, I went through it and pointed and made marks where his concepts are really using, to a great extent, concepts taken from the Maral of Prague. He emailed back to me, he traces descent in the Maral of Prague. So, in other words, this is the greatest power in the human being. Unfortunately, it's frequently suppressed entirely, and that's the problem with modern man. It's suppressed. But underneath, it's unconscious for most people. We've got to bring it from the unconscious self, the divine image, which is the real inner utopia of the human being, and develop it. It's the divine image inside man. We say, really we say it in the morning in our tefillah, L'Elokeinu Shamu Tata B'To Orai. We say Hashem gives us this fantastic neshama. The breath of God is inside the human mind. It's somehow contained and connected with the human brain. You refer to it even in tefillah, before putting on tefillin, and the neshama sheba mochi, the soul which is in my brain. That's not in the brain. The soul of man, the ego of man, is something non-spatial, but it's connected with the brain. And the brain has deep down the unconscious concept of gaining a glimpse of Hashem. So it says like this, the words of the Torah, they come to each person therefore in a different way. That's what he calls that the word of Hashem was divided into 70 languages, the sages say. So this is Rav Wolbe's interpretation. 70 languages refer to the different ways in which there's a particular aspect that applies to the particular individual. When it enters deep, לתוך תוכו של האדם, אל הנקודה האישית ביותר שלו, to his most personal individuality, when a person sees how he himself, with all the aspects of his talents, his inclinations, it becomes clarified through the words of the Torah, and thereby you can come upon the specific individual perus, interpretation of that word. You ask me, what is the what is the way in which the human individual can experience God. So there's 70 ways. 70 ways can mean 7,000 ways. In fact, there's many ways, the sages say, כשם שהצופים של בני אדם שונים זה מזה, כך גם כן דעותיו של כל אדם שונות זו מזו. Just that the faces of each individual differ from another individual, and there's no case of a complete clone being produced naturally. What you can do it through various forms of genetic, so on, with animals, you can do it with humans. But naturally speaking, each individual has got a different set of genes, a different set even of fingerprints, a different type of face. The face may be smaller, but everything's different. And therefore, this is the concept of saying, of Shivim Panim La Torah. There's 70 faces to Torah. The concept of every word of the Torah is they can be split up so that a portion of it enters into the depth of each person in a different manner. And this is why, when it comes to Shavuot, when the Torah was given, so the Gemara in Psachim says that everybody agrees that on Shavuot you have to dedicate it not just to the spiritual self, but also the physical self. And there was a great scholar called Rav Yosef. He said like this: please make me a most special piece of calf meat, which I don't have all around the year, because if it would not be for this day, there would be many people called Yosef in the street. In other words, because of this day, I've got no duplicate. I'm a different person, a specific person. The day of the Torah teaches us each individual. The truth is, not only of the people of Israel, there were 3 million souls that heard. But we say to some extent, the whole world heard the Decalogue. It means if we look at it from the impact of the Decalogue upon mankind, even simply speaking, the vast majority of mankind have heard of the Decalogue. I'll just tell you a very interesting episode. It was just the week before Shavuot, in which I attended together with many rabbis of Israel a rabbinical conference in Eilat. And it was decided that we would, each one of us, would address different schools and so on. So I addressed, it was top class of the elementary school. And then just preparing a bit for some of them. We were preparing already for bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. And the teacher that spoke to her, she agreed. I said, I'm going to speak about the Decalogue, Seret HaDibrot, the Israelis, 10 words of the Decalogue. Come on. So I asked the children, can any of you tell me what are the 10 Aseret HaDvarim? What are they? And it took a long time. Most of them didn't know. Well, they said, one of them said, love your fellow men like yourself. Another one said, you have to keep Seder night. All sorts of them. Till I got them round to, it took question answers. They then tried to find out. They hadn't really learnt it. There was not a single person there amongst the boys and girls who knew what the Decalogue was, clearly. It's here in Israel, see? But came to it, I think the teacher was very happy. He gave it some, it's quite lively discussion. And we see what we have to do today. The vast majority of Jews are not aware of what millions of Gentiles do know. And yet a great section of our people are ignorant of what it means to be a Jew. But all over the world, those who've been influenced in one way or another by Christianity or Islam, and many other educated human beings all over the world, they all know the words of the Decalogue. Very many. Millions and millions. It's the bestseller until today, in thousands of languages. But we should know it. And underneath, I'm sure they've got some knowledge of these concepts, but it's not strong enough. But when we say the specific aspect we're referring to is the importance of the individual, that's what Rav Yosef says. I've got a special part of the Torah given to me by Hashem, which is different to everybody else, because of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, as an individual. Through the Holy Torah, a person is able to find self-fulfillment, his individuality. This is his true identity, not a number. Today, identity, well, identity numbers, passport numbers, identity. And some people, unfortunately, still have an identity number which has been put on, engraved upon their arm. So the people are numbers, use the numbers, but we have identity which has specific significance. Every tip of the Torah, mitchalek, it can become a part of each person and can pierce through to the depth of all his talents and all his inclinations. The fotet yitzarim rahim, and by doing so, it breaks down the evil inclinations by beating into him, and the sparks which go out from this is shown the Torah in beautiful colors. So this is the essence of a human being. But we can't say no, that ends here, the first section. Do you have any questions on this? Or any comments? No comments? So I'm going to carry here with on this page, it's called Beit, and the reference to what it says in that same passage, Mora Pesachim, concerning Rav Sheshet, who was a great scholar. Every 30 days, Rav Sheshet would make a review of his learning. You know that if you learn something once, it often perhaps remains in the mind for a short time and then disappears. It goes in one ear, and shortly after it goes out of the other ear. It goes into your mind and disappears from your mind. So therefore review is important. So when he would review his studies, he would stand and lean on the boat of his doorway and explain, "Rejoice, my soul, rejoice. It's for you that I have learnt Tanakh, the Bible, and for you that I've learnt the oral tradition." So Rav Sheshet implies that the more a person learns and reviews it, makes sure it stays with him, he grows in his innate understanding which suits his development, both from the Bible, the written Torah, and also especially from the oral tradition. So the Gemara asks the question, Rav Elazar said, were it not for the Torah, the written and the oral, then heaven and earth wouldn't exist. There'd be no world. Him says, Im lo briti umam v'layla, chukot shamayim v'aretz usamti. I would never have established the laws of nature of heaven and earth were it not for the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint of the universe. That means the principles of the laws of nature, the laws of history, they're all connected with the moral path, development of fulfilling the Torah. This is implicated in the words which are used for the Torah all the way through the Bible, and which have already revealed to Avraham Avinu. They said, I know that Avraham Avinu, he is following the Derech Hashem, the path of Hashem, to do justice and charity. Asot Takao Mishpat. That's the Derech Hashem. And the Derech Hashem is the fulfillment of the Torah. If a person goes according to the path of loving kindness and justice in all aspects of life, he's thereby uniting with Hashem, who's the mind of the universe, and also wants to bring the whole world to the highest level of having unity with Hashem. That there is Hashem. So the very existence of the world depends on Torah study. So why did Rav Sheshes only speak about what he has? He says, my soul, I'm myself, I'm so happy. The Gemara says, Meikora yavid inish adad nafshikos. When a person undertakes to learn Torah, generally speaking, the path is to go and do it for his own purpose. He's got it in his mind, why am I put in this world? So that I should fulfill a purpose. That I should become more perfect. Instead of being an animal, as I might become without Torah, or even worse than an animal. As you see today, there are no animals who are so corrupt and so cruel as human beings today. So the person says, I'll have to learn Torah for myself. And that gives him a great deal of feeling of satisfaction. He's able to grow in it, keep on growing. When he goes over it again, and then he goes to the next stage, so he tries to build up constant growth to become a better human being. But after a time, he loses even thoughts about himself. He's only concerned, he knows, that without Torah, there'd be no world. So I have to learn so the world should continue to exist. But today we're shown this practically, when there are so many human beings who are working hard to destroy the world, except for themselves. Somewhere they feel they'll survive, although it's madness to think. In fact, the policy adopted by those who discuss the future of mankind, they say, mad. What's mad? Mutually assured destruction. And he says that's the best thing that keeps the balance. it's the most risky thing. It's really mad. They think the mutually assured destruction means if you always continue having a balance of power, then no side is ever going to start, because they know whatever I start, if I pull the trigger, then automatically within less a split second the other side pulls the trigger. So it's mutually assured destruction. It's complete suicide. And people think this balance is going to stay. It may stay if it's clearly directed by people who are so careful that they will never pull the trigger. But we know some of the leaders, they themselves, they are so unpredictable and they're so biased, generally in their own favor, one way or another. They act like insane people. And insane people, it isn't just mad, mutual destruction. It's not going to save the world from destruction. It's going to bring this whole globe to become annihilated. Clear? But, so we go the other way. We say, don't think of the importance of becoming better yourself, and then think of you're really just part of the world. I just wanted, there's a book written by Carl Jaspers called The Future of Mankind, for which he won the Nobel Prize. When I saw that book, I was amazed. You understand? Here there was a non-Jewish philosopher from a Christian background, from Basel in Switzerland, and he writes in his book, Future of Mankind, who's going to save the world? He says, the people who will save the world is those who also saved it in the past in different ways, and now it's the way of ethical guidance of each human being in whatever he does, as exemplified by the way of halachic observance of the Jewish people, and that's got to be adopted by mankind, the science of how to have all your actions, whatever it is, guided by an ethical source, which they believe it's from God, but even the person doesn't believe it's from God, but he will think in the same direction. That can save the world. That's the whole book is about that. Try to find out more about him. How could he know even about it? But I found out that in Basel, he was close to a great Talmudical scholar who lived in Basel, and he explained to him what the Torah means. The Torah is a lifesaver. That's why he got the Nobel Prize. So now let's see where Wolbe takes this in a beautiful direction. He said, what did Rav Sheshes mean here? He said, Chadoi nafshoi. Let my soul be very happy that I've been able to learn. It's for your sake to survive and reach a high level that I have studied the Tanakh, the Bible, and the oral tradition. The Gemara says it isn't so. The Lord says, were it not for the Torah, heaven and earth wouldn't exist. And Rashi says, you think that learning only brings higher benefit to those who study? So the answer of the Gemara is, at the beginning, the start of it is for yourself. But gradually, you recognize that it's essential for the world. And in the beginning, it's bishvilo tzorko. It's to build his particular individuality. After time, his individual personality becomes part and parcel of the world movement of mankind. He becomes a person who is not for himself, is there to establish mutually assured redemption for mankind. I think that's how it works. That it really explains to us, also I think on the base of this, Moshe Rabbeinu. In fact, what we spoke about yesterday has a lot to do with this. The specific quality of Moshe Rabbeinu, Anav Ma'or Mikol Adam Asher Pnei Adamah. He was more humble than any human being, and received from Moshe Rabbeinu what he went through, the house of Paro, and afterwards Midian, and what you read just both in Josephus as well as in Sefer Yashar, the old text, what he went through, till he had the revelation of Sinai. And we also see, at the beginning, he was concerned more for himself. He said, how can I take leadership? I can't speak. He knew what his portion was. Serve Hashem and pursue righteousness and justice. And he did that. But in due course, he no longer did things for himself. You can see when Hashem said, I'll make you in a people, you'll become the progenitor of good people who don't give in to any form of idolatry. He said, no, wipe me away. He made himself recognize whatever he did was not any more for himself in any way. It was part of the cloud. He recognized, he pleaded also to Hashem constantly, you have to help by whatever I can do, the plan that ultimately, to say, as you see, which he described as Sefer Devarim, and through the people of Israel, with their ups and downs, but since they were the ones who heard your covenant, made a covenant with you, this will ultimately be the way not only to preserve mankind, but to bring mankind to a far higher level. I'll be very pleased if you do have questions, but maybe if you can bring them at the beginning of tomorrow's shiur.